Hello everybody, my name is Slippery Jack, and today I am going to be talking about the new album from Squarepusher, Be Up a Hello. Finally I get to talk about this guy. So Tom Jenkinson is a pioneer of IDM music along with other artists like Aphex Twin, Autechre, and he has been highly influential, but at the same time remains something unique. The most obvious is that he has a lot of jazz elements. The jazz is what really attracted me to Squarepusher, but even without the jazz, he's still got that signature sound that works just fine. Squarepusher is very diverse. He mainly concentrates on like his drum and bass, drill and bass kind of thing. And in case you don't know what that is, drill and bass it's sort of like drum and bass, but imagine just like the beat being extremely complex. And with drill and bass, if you're not really concentrating on it, you are not going to enjoy it very much. It's so complex that you just put it in the background. A lot of times it'll just sound like just random electronics, but really fast. And yeah. But however, unlike a lot of IDM artists, Jenkinson does everything he possibly can do to challenge the listener whilst making sure it's still something he likes. There are still several Squarepusher songs that I was never able to understand, but he has a very large catalog of music, and there is most likely at least something in there that you will enjoy. I will admit I have not listened to every single album because there are just so many of those and I never really found the time. But yeah, after checking this out, I really need to go back and listen to everything I've missed. I've listened to most of them though, like my favorites are definitely Feed Me Weird Things, Hard Normal Daddy, and Hello Everything. But of course those are the obvious choices. There are still some other great ones. There's Music is Rot of One Note, and Eufabulum, which tend to get overlooked a lot. And a while back, someone was wanting me to review either Go Plastic or Feed Me Weird Things. I will do that once I have the chance. I'm going to go ahead and do Feed Me Weird Things because I think that's a much better album in my opinion. Go Plastic really wasn't doing that much for me. Even though it was still enjoyable, it's just not my thing. It's not Squarepusher's defining album. And so I will admit that the reason why I stopped listening to Squarepusher is because there were so many percussive tracks that just kind of felt like filler. And I didn't mind the harshness, but I was just wanting something a little more accessible after a while. But I am still a huge fan, and the less melodic tracks give the albums more diversity, so in a way they do work just fine. His last album, Damagen Furies, was sort of like Go Plastic, but a little more polished, little less like retro Squarepusher, more like Eufabulum meets Go Plastic. And I loved Eufabulum. Despite being a departure from his old sound, it didn't really have like any of those jazz elements, but it still had everything I loved about this guy. It had lots of great hooks, lots of great melodies, and the ending, like the second half was like really dark, a lot more percussive, and it was pretty cool. But this album was like, compared to his other stuff, this was very nice production, just very shimmery. And I had heard that Be Up a Hello was going to be a return to the old Squarepusher sound. I personally prefer the old Squarepusher sound typically. So I was quite excited for this new project. However, this one was, there is one problem I have with modern IDM that I should get out of the way, and that it really has not progressed at all. I think that there was, like, it's somewhat new, but everything that's come out in the last 5 years sounds like it might as well have been released in the 90s, and it wouldn't be any further ahead of its time than the IDM albums that were coming out back then. And that is my biggest problem with Be Up a Hello, is that it does nothing that IDM hasn't done before. Like, for a Squarepusher album, I'd say this is really one of his least interesting and creative he's done so far. And yeah, that really disappoints me, because one of the reasons why I love Squarepusher so much is because of how creative he is, and he's willing to take these risks. This takes no risks at all. It's basically just like everything he's done already, minus the jazz. And the lack of the jazz really isn't a problem for me. I'm perfectly fine without the jazz. But yeah. But was it enjoyable? Well, of course it is. In fact, there isn't a single track that I outright hated. And luckily, this happens to be all the drill and bass stuff that I really like. A lot of the tracks are very fast and complex, which is what you can expect out of drill and bass. And there are plenty of acid squelches, and everything typical of the early Squarepusher sound. And yeah, I'll go down the track listing. The album starts with Oberlove, which is, as usual, he's going to start out with a more melodic track. It's got like a great hook. It just really puts me in a good mood. And Hitsonu is also really fun, a lot more quirky, sort of like it could be off of Hello Everything. And then Nervelevers, however you say that, takes the album into a much darker, less melodic kind of side. But the thing is, I really like about this track is that it just gives you the sensation of traveling really fast, and it's a lot of fun. And Speedcrank is also a ton of fun. This is one of the harsher tracks, but yeah, it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite on this album. It has lots of cool sounds going around you, and it's very glitchy, and some of these melodies are kind of remind me of those on Tom York's Anima, and I really love like the acid squelches that go on there. It's just like, I don't know, it's just really fun. And to give you a break from the harsher drill and bass tracks, we have Detroit People Mover. This is a straight ambient track, and what can I say? It's great. It's got like some really nice melodies on here, and it just, yeah, it's always like such a nice listen. It really relaxes you. It's almost like that drill and bass stuff didn't even happen. And Vortrack sounds like something that could have been off Eufabulum, crossed with like the early Squarepusher sound, especially like the second half of Eufabulum. It's got like all these analog acid synths, and there's like this ambient pad that runs through it, and it really makes the track feel much more expansive. And Terminal Slam, this is where the album kind of starts to fall apart for me a little. Like, when I'm listening to it, I feel like it's great all the way through, but then Terminal Slam and Murkrev Bass, they just kind of run together, and they're very forgettable. And when they're on, they're really good, but yeah, it's just not. Yeah, I just can't remember them. I can't even remember the melodies on either of them, even though I remember really enjoying it. And the album ends with 80 Ondula, which is another ambient track, much darker than Detroit People Mover. However, I barely listened to this track all the way through, because it sounds like a much less expansive version of Aphex Twin's Tree. And in case you didn't know, Tree is one of my favorite tracks on Selected Ambient Works Volume 2. And AD Ondula sounds way too similar, and it isn't nearly as good. It's just not as immersive, it's not three-dimensional, it's like one-dimensional. And like this really pisses me off, because you take like someone else's great track, and then you make like your own version of it that's not even, doesn't even come close. If you're going to copy Aphex Twin, you should at least try to do it better. And overall, Be Up a Hello has a lot of problems. This is definitely one of Jenkinson's least interesting projects to date. This album does absolutely nothing he hasn't done prior to this, and everything on here that like Squarepusher hasn't really done has already been done by Aphex Twin and his contemporaries 30 years ago. I'm starting to get the feeling that IDM has just hit a wall. All the IDM artists today are doing literally nothing to move the genre forward. It's just all nostalgic 90s stuff to bring the listeners back to the artificial intelligence era. And the only artist that I can think of that it's actually doing something to move IDM forward is John Hopkins, if you want to call him IDM. I personally consider him IDM. But everyone else, all the veterans like Plaid, Squarepusher now, Alltecker, they're not doing anything new. This might as well have come out in the 90s. And the last album to really, by a veteran IDM artist, to come out in the last 5 years, that was actually moving the genre forward was Plaid's The Digging Remedy. That had like that was using some more modern techniques while still being like a signature Plaid sound. But then like, yeah, everyone's just like going, yeah, all about 90s nostalgia and but, okay, yeah, I was a little disappointed with this album, but on its own, it's still quite fun to listen to. If you're a hardcore Squarepusher fan, and you especially miss, like, the early days, definitely pick this one up, but it's not his best. Don't expect Hard Normal Daddy out of this thing. If you really, like, perhaps a lot of you who like the nostalgic kind of thing that he's doing, perhaps you will enjoy this a lot more than me, but let me remind you, I am still in high school. I was not there during the artificial intelligence era. I was not there during like the late 90s IDM era. In fact, I didn't get into IDM until like 2018. So, I have no nostalgia for this at all. Well, yeah, I do have a little bit of nostalgia because I've been listening to Squarepusher's other stuff for long enough. But, yeah. So I'm overall feeling a 68 out of 100. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe for more entertainment. And I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.